good. Good. All right. Well, hello, people. Welcome back, 90 and Out. We're live here, building for the kingdom one brick at a time. Might still be processing here. Okay, fair enough. Let's see. I think we're still processing with Rumble. It's looking like it. We're good? Oh, we're good. All right, excellent. We are moving. So, thank you for joining us here at 90 and Out, building for the kingdom one brick at a time. Probably noticing, unlike previous live streams, there's no Lego box or build. There's already a pre-built bird. I forgot what kind of bird this is. It's a tropical bird. But it's part of the Creator 3-in-1 series, 31136, Exotic Birds. And we're going to be tearing this one apart and either building a frog, a lot bigger than this one, or we're going to do a fish. We might do both. We'll see. I think I'm going to start with the frog, though, simply to compare this polybag frog from about 15 years ago. It's a really cool frog with articulating head there, and just see how they compare. That's all. Also in this live stream, if you would like to support 90 and Out, you may do so through a number of means. You can get a t-shirt like this one, Building for the Kingdom one brick at a time, using the shopping link here on Rumble. If you're over on YouTube, just go to the description. There's a link in the description. You can also support the channel with direct support and things like that. But the easiest thing you can do is hit the thumbs up, thumbs down, comments, shares, follows, subscriptions, all the social media stuff, which costs you nothing except a little clicks of your mouse. Those things do really help the channel and help the live stream get out to more people and tells the algorithm, hey, this is worthwhile for people. So if you would do that, that would be greatly appreciated. We're going to get really involved here with the subject matter of today's stream. We've got quite a few things to go over and cover. A few of those items are going to be branching out onto Rebrickable as Bricklink design. And then also how the biblical literacy course that we've been working on with Holt Helps Readers and 6 Points Church, and some future plans with that and how that's progressing. We've been at it now for a few months, several months, and there has been some principal photography done in that course, but we'll see how that goes. The first half of this stream, we are going to be looking at the Book of Ruth. Is this historical fiction, or is this historical fact? As well as missions and what that means for the Christian and Christian ethics. So without further ado, let's get right into it. We have hopefully some live. We do have some viewers, looks like. So if you can hear me, if you can see me well, let me know. If there's any lag issues, let me know that as well. It doesn't appear like there is any in the metrics here. So let me know if you're able to hear well, if the audio is good, as well as the visual. While we're doing that, I'm going to set my little frog off to the side and start tearing apart this exotic bird. So while we get this torque taken apart here, we're just going to take the whole thing apart and start with the frog. Ooh, almost caught it. Know which service you prefer, content on, which one you're watching from. That also helps us with future production. So get this thing taken apart here. While doing that, let's talk about how seminary is going at Spirit and Life Seminary. If you've ever been interested in an online seminary that is pretty streamlined and really to the point, Spirit and Life Seminary, relatively new. I believe it was organized in 2018, 2019 with the Church of God of Prophecy, Cleveland, Tennessee. Check them out. I am a student there. I am beginning my second year of their 2-year program. Thoroughly enjoying it so far. The professors have been great, staff, faculty. The classes have been pretty good. The biggest criticism I have for Spirit and Life Seminary is I want more. I want more classes, more professors, more offerings. From them. I'd love to see the school expand and grow and offer just more robust programs for students. And I know that takes time, especially with any new, relatively new school. So if you would like to support what Spirit and Life Seminary is doing, please, by all means, head over to their website, check them out. See what course study they have going on, and the nice thing about them also is you can do like one-off classes and things of that nature. So keep taking this off. Welcome. It looks like we have a few new viewers coming in. If you're just now joining us here at Building for the Kingdom, one brick at a time, I'm Timothy Holt. I am a student at Spirit and Life Seminary, as well as a teaching pastor at 6 Points Church in Parker, Pennsylvania. If you are looking for a home church and you're in the Parker, Pennsylvania area, come check us out. We would love to see you in person, meet you, talk, discuss, live life together, that kind of thing. So, no man is an island, and that is certainly true for Christians. So right now I'm just taking apart this exotic bird so I can build another model out of it. So using its pieces. I enjoy building with Lego bricks, designing my own sets as well as official sets. However, full disclosure, Lego is not a sponsor of this channel in any way, shape, or form. They are not very fond of sponsoring religious content or anything that resembles religious content, with the exception of some very specific builds, such as Notre Dame. Yeah, Notre Dame, Catholic cathedral, beautiful Gothic architecture, very old building, but is still in use today and is currently being renovated due to a fire a couple years ago, which is pretty fascinating. Not sure how those renovations are going, but pretty exciting, right? It's over in Paris. If you're over there, check it out. However, I believe that the official Lego build of Notre Dame is for the architecture, not the fact that it is a current active Catholic cathedral. But hey, details, right? All right, before we get into the Book of Ruth, I'd like to talk a little bit about Christian ethics and where that comes from. Currently, just started a ethics class with Professor Simon Rock over at Spirit and Life Seminary, and ethics is one of those discussion topics that seems to get misunderstood a lot or redefined, right? So, all right, that is one piece. So, everyone has ethics. Everyone. Your narcissist has an ethical framework in which they view the world. So, ethics is just simply how you view the world from a morality standpoint. There are Muslim, Islam ethics, there's Hindu ethics, there's Christian ethics, there's moral relativism. I mean, we could talk ad nauseum on ethics and what that means. Back in the 80s, 90s, somewhere along there, those lines, there were people, business men and women who got together and came up with professional ethics. There is the ethical dilemmas of um, the medical field, like the Hippocratic Oath, for example, to do no harm, right? But here at 90 and Out, when we talk about ethics, unless otherwise specified, we're talking predominantly about Christian ethics. And that is where we're going to bridge into some misnomers concerning the Bible. The Bible is not predominantly a book of do's and don'ts, prescription, right? It is made up of, yes, there are some of the 66 books and writings of the Christian Bible are um, ethical in nature and full of do's and don'ts, but the bulk of these ancient texts are actually descriptive, not prescriptive. And that's pretty important distinction to make. That prescription over description, right? We may misunderstand the text and take it as being prescriptive when in reality it's descriptive. So one example of this is when David, as a teenager, goes to bring some bread and food and provisions for his brothers who are fighting in King Saul's army against the Philistines, right? It's a famous story, David and Goliath, right? Now, we could take that as a prescriptive text and take it in this like metaphysical, analogistic way of, hey, there are going to be giants in your life, and you should be like David and trust God and take out the giants with your sling, right? That would, another way of putting that is an eisegetic way of reading the text. Um, that's not really a good idea, in my opinion. It's very easy to misrepresent the text and lose sight of what the text is actually saying when we read ourselves onto it. So, just from a general text perspective, we need to identify what we're reading and why. In this case, that is overtly a descriptive text about a teenager in the early Iron Age, late Bronze Age, early Iron Age, um, doing some pretty interesting stuff, right? And if we read ourselves on to that text and use it as a prescription, we're going to run into some problems, okay? Because there's an old saying, none is perfect save Christ. No, not one. So when we read these descriptive passages, these descriptive texts, and we use them to be prescriptive in our lives, we're going to probably run into some problems. Now, there are some prescriptive texts, like, for example, the Sermon on the Mount. As recorded by Matthew, it's a sermon delivered by Jesus of Nazareth, first century Jewish rabbi. Pretty important guy. All right. That is a prescriptive text. He is telling his audience what to do, right? There are other prescriptive texts, like pretty much almost all of Paul's letters are prescriptive. So, what does that have to do with Christian ethics? Well, Christian ethics is steeped in a worldview of the Christian theology or religion. And that is definitely different than other ethical quandaries or worldviews. So, for example, if you're a moral relativist, you're going to come at the world through this idea that all roads lead to Rome, so to speak. Like, there's no substantial difference between the Hindu and the Buddhist and the Muslim and the Mormon and the Christian. There's a bumper sticker that was popular several years ago. It's the coexist bumper sticker. I'm not sure if I can pull up. Let me see if I can pull up a copy of that. Coexist. I think I'm misspelling it. Coexist. Here we go. Yeah, the coexist bumper sticker logo. You got the C image. Let's see if we can get a breakdown of it here. First began in the early 2000s. It became popular, especially after September 11th. So, using an Islamic crescent for the C, a peace sign for the O, the Hindu Om symbol for the E, the Star of David for the X, and a pentacle for the dot of the I, a yin yang symbol for the S, and the Christian cross for the T. You spell out coexist. All right. Now, the original designer of this symbol, this graphic, is Jerry Jasper. It's hogwash. All right. It's hogwash. So the reason it's hogwash is because if you actually break down those ethical frameworks, the Hindus, the Buddhists, the Muslims or Islam, Jews, you've got the yin yang, the Christian belief system. They are fundamentally opposed to each other in many ways. Okay, so for example, a core tenet of Islam is to subjugate or kill unbelievers. Apostates, people who leave Islam, are to be executed. All right. If you don't believe me, you can read the Quran. And Muhammad was very outspoken about subjugating infidels or unbelievers. That is at odds, diametrically opposed to literally everybody else in that group. So, not real good coexistence there, right? Other coexisting factions. All right, so Judaism. Let's go with Judaism. The Star of David is used for the X in coexist, right? Well, that's problematic when regards to Christianity, which is the T, the cross. Why? Because Christians follow that first century Jewish rabbi, Jesus of Nazareth, who was publicly executed on a cross by the Romans at the request of the Jews. So Jesus of Nazareth proclaimed himself to be the Messiah, the Jewish Messiah. And if you know much about Orthodox Judaism, you're probably going to come to the conclusion that they don't believe Jesus of Nazareth was their Messiah. Because if they did, they wouldn't be Jews, they would be Christians. And that is at the fundamental heart of those two different religious belief systems. Is one says we're still looking for our Messiah, and the other one says, hey, we found him, and his name's Jesus of Nazareth. You might be asking yourself right now, what does that have to do with ethics? Well, very simple. We all come to view things from an ethical worldview. All right. We all come with our own ethical worldview. And Christians, Hindus, Muslims, Buddhists, right? That worldview is going to dictate how we interact with others, including others in a pluralistic society, all right? So, meaning multiple ethical worldviews. For example, how a Orthodox Jew interacts with a Hindu is going to be very different than, say, a Buddhist and a Orthodox Christian, right? And those are still going to be different even more so with, say, a Orthodox Muslim. Now, that's not to say there aren't people who are cultural Christians or cultural Hindus or cultural Buddhists. For example, right now it's been argued that the mayor of New York City, Mandani, is a cultural Muslim. I think there is some truth in that observation that he's not an Orthodox Muslim. He doesn't seem to adhere to the more strict or Orthodox view. That I'm using a lowercase o with Orthodox, not an uppercase O. All right. Orthodox simply meaning a traditional or authentic view. Right? So, Mandani does not appear to be orthodox in his belief system when it comes to Mohammedanism or Muslim, right? There are different ways you can view that. One of them would be, oh, okay. For example, if you look at like Saudi Arabia, for example, or other countries that are very steeped in their Muslim faith, you're going to see hajibs or the head wraps. You're going to see a certain type of apparel being worn, abstaining from certain foods, eating other foods, different religious rites, RITE, right? We'll set that off to the side, looks like. So back to Christian ethics. Christianity has a very specific worldview, steeped heavily in the person and teaching of Jesus of Nazareth, as well as the broader corpus of writings known as the Bible. We have the Old Testament, the New Testament, and those writings. Okay, they're ancient in origin. They've been heavily discussed and debated throughout the last, 2,000 years. And there is this ethical framework and view. One of those tenets is this concept of love and what loving your neighbor is, or loving God and your neighbor, right? So if you have any comments, questions, did we just get kicked off? Hold on. Hold up. We still live? Okay, it says we're live. All right. Yeah, I'm not sure why it did that. Let me see what's going on here. Bear with me one moment. Okay, I'm not sure why it kicked me off, but okay. It's fine. It says we're still live. So if you have any comments, questions, snide remarks, concerns, disagreements, put them in the comments, all right? I would love to hear from you. There it is. So that is the basis of Christian ethics, is the corpus of writings known as the Bible, and more specifically the New Testament. The New Testament, there are 27 writings, books and writings in the New Testament, centered around the Greco-Roman biographies called the Gospels of Jesus Christ. They serve as the basis, all right? And just like that bumper sticker is nonsensical with any real look at it, okay? You're going to find that anytime you take a moral stance, there are going to be people who disagree with you on those moral stances. So what it really comes down to is how firm are you in that ethical quandary, right? So one example from history we can look at is the Holocaust, World War II and the Holocaust. There are people who don't like to discuss what they consider to be things that happened in history that are not for the faint of heart, right? Like the Holocaust, all right? However, if we don't look at them from a ethical or moral perspective, how are we going to then gauge what happens in the future, right? So not every decision in life is an ethical one. So for example, it wasn't really an ethical decision, if you will, for me to choose to put on the shirt. Okay. By the way, our dog here, Iris, is right here. I'm not sure what she wants. So hold on. She just wanted out, so that's fine. So for example of ethical decisions or moral questions, right? Decision making. For whether I wore jeans or khakis today is not really an ethical decision, right? But there are certain decisions that we make that we try to argue are not ethical ones that really are. So, for example, um, easy ones. Hey, you're a devout Christian. You believe murder is bad and ethnic cleansing is absolutely evil. And you live in Nazi controlled Germany in the 1940s, or first half of the 1940s. And the Gestapo, the SS, show up at your door and they're like, hey, are you hiding any Jews? Right? You have an ethical dilemma because lying is bad, right? Lying is bad. Right? Christians believe you should not lie, right? But we also believe that you should not murder. And what are the Gestapo and the SS going to do to these Jews? They're going to execute them. They're going to murder them, right? So, do you lie and say no, you're not hiding them, or do you and, or do you tell the truth and say, yeah, we are hiding them. They're out back, right? That's an ethical dilemma, and that's a pretty obvious one, right? However, I think in most of our daily lives, our ethical dilemmas aren't that obvious, right? They're not that profound, if you will. Am I missing a piece? Nope, it's right there. They're not that profound or obvious, right? So, for example, I'm a paramedic in my other time, right? I work as a paramedic. Is that the decision to work as a paramedic? Is that an ethical decision, or is it just a way for me to provide for my family? Well, on the surface level, yeah, it's just a way for me to provide for my family. But there's more to that, right? Like, I don't have to work as a paramedic to provide for my family. I could work at a factory. So why do I work as a paramedic? Well, because I have a genuine desire to care for others, and that is a ethical position, right? Stemming from my Christian faith. So I'm looking for a specific piece, by the way. If you have any questions, comments, I would love to hear from you. Live streams are much more enjoyable when there's interactions from the viewer, like you. I do not see that piece. So that could have been an extra piece from when opening the pack. So let's try to find it here. Looks like it is a blue piece, this color blue. Is it dark blues? Wrong color blue, right? Yeah, that's the wrong color blue. Nope, nothing there. Those are greens, reds, grays. Blues. So anytime I have extra pieces, you probably already noticed, I keep them mostly sorted so I can find them when I need them. Is that it? That's not the right color. That's also the wrong type of piece. So that's not going to work for us. I think I found it. Nope. So I could use 2 of those. We'll set them off to the side. That's not what it calls for, though. It calls for a single piece, but I have 2 of them, and they would work. Let's keep looking here and see if I have the right piece. Because I do have several of those single wide pieces. So that would work. And I've already cataloged these pieces, so not a problem there. Yeah, we're going to do that. All right. Because I do, so we can do that. That's fine with it. See, that's a lighter color. I don't see our blue, though. So, yeah, fascinating. Okay. So a lot of times when I build these 3-in-1s, I will like to incorporate the extra pieces some way into the build just to keep them with the build. But in this case, I didn't, so that's fine. This works. Yeah, that works just fine. We can do that. Interesting. This says it's a darker blue. Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's see if we can't get the right pieces here. All right. So this says that one goes there, and a dark blue, we'll set those 2 off because I grabbed them extra, goes up here. And I think I do have that piece. So So, how devout are you in your ethical dilemmas and worldviews? Let me know. So we've got maybe I don't have that piece. Thought I did. Huh. Interesting. Okay. All right. But I do have those. So let's do that. All right. So back to our build. Now, you might be asking yourself, what does that have to do with missions, which is the next segment? It's very simple. Christian missionaries go out and spread the gospel of Jesus Christ as a direct extension to our Christian ethic. Okay, so if someone truly, honestly believes that Jesus Christ lived a perfect life, died a perfect death, sacrificial death, so that you and I can be reconciled back to God, the Gospel 101, then they're going to naturally want to tell other people about it. All right. So, famous magician Penn from Penn and Teller said that he respected this Christian evangelist who would show up to their shows, and attempt to proselytize him or convert him because he was devout. And he said, at what point in time, if you believe this train, if I'm standing on train tracks and you believe a train is coming and is going to run me over, at what point in time do you tackle me? Like, how much do you have to hate me to not tell me the train is coming? And there's a lot of truth in that statement. Every Christian is called to be a missionary. We are called to be on mission for the cause of Christ. We are called to tell others about Him, right? And point them to Him. Yeah. Whether it's at our jobs, whether it's in a foreign country, whether it's going grocery shopping, doesn't matter what we're doing, we're supposed to be doing everything unto the Lord or for the cause of Christ. And that pretty much sums up missions, right? It's not, a lot of times I think people misunderstand what missions is from a Christian ethic, Christian worldview. And it's very simply put, everything is missional. The entire way we live our lives is missional. Okay. Now, where do we get that ethical framework from? Well, the Bible, to put it bluntly. We get it from the Bible. Now, more specifically, though, it's some people will take the descriptive texts and they'll use them prescriptively. I don't recommend it. I do think there are Christian principles that you can gauge and garner from those descriptive texts, but taking them straight prescriptive is not a very good idea. All right. Huh? Okay, so that's like that, and then that's going to be okay, like that right there. Oh, okay. Oh, that's neat. That's the leg, so that's cool. Um, all right, so last term, I wrote a paper for overview of the Old Testament on the beginning of the Book of Ruth. And we're going to segue into that now. One, I'm very happy with this paper. It's probably one of the best compositions that I've written on any biblical text. So I'm very happy with it. That's cool. I'm very happy with it. I'm going to transition over to the Book of Ruth now. Remember, any text taken out of context leaves a con, so we don't want to do that. Interesting. Okay, I just did that. All right, so I am gonna need to pull up some extra pieces here. They're the eye pieces. I don't think I used them for the other build because I don't see them here. Let me just look again. Oh, there they are. I did use them. Okay. Yeah. All right. The eyeballs. By the way, thank you all for watching. All right, so let's get over here to Ruth. Close that. Close that. We can close that. That's fine. All right, so Ruth starts out with, I'm going to read from the New King James Version. Ruth starts out with, "Now it came to pass in the days when the judges ruled that there was a famine in the land, and a certain man of Bethlehem, Judea, went to dwell in the country of Moab. He and his wife and his 2 sons. The name of the man was Elimelech. The name of his wife was Naomi, and the names of their 2 sons were Mahlon and Chilion, Ephraimites of Bethlehem, Judah, and they went to the country of Moab and remained there." Now, if you recall, I said that we were going to be looking at the Book of Ruth. It's very short. It's 4 chapters. Originally, it didn't have any chapters. They were added later to help with study and referencing. And by later, I mean much later. Like this text was originally written in ancient Hebrew around the 9th, possibly as early as the 7th century AD. But most historians will put it in the 9th century AD. Or BC, sorry, BC, not AD, BC. Yeah. And then chapters were added in the High Middle Ages. So much, much later. Um, and it's been viewed for the most of history as a ancient Near East historical narrative, specifically in the romance section. Historical romance, but historical narrative nonetheless. Oh, excuse me. So, when we read any text, we must ask certain questions in order to gain a comprehension. When I was growing up, they were known as the 5 W's: who, what, where, when, why. Who is writing and who are they writing to? What are they writing? So that would be your general genre, right? What is it they're writing? When are they writing? When they're writing, it matters as well. What, who, what, where, when, and why, right? Who, what, where, when, and why. That is an important metric anytime we pick up any text, all right? So whether it's J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter series or it's ancient Near East histories, right? Or maybe you're reading Shakespearean sonnets or the description of this live stream, right? Whatever the case may be, we need to ask those fundamental questions when we're reading it. And some of those questions also include, what kind of text are we reading? What are the claims being made by the text? The purpose of the text? And often, when we look at academia, we seem to take, and by we, I'm myself included, we take these texts for granted. Okay, we take these questions as givens, and we don't actually give them their due regard as to answering them, because we just assume the answers are already answered, and that's pretty lackluster. That is not beneficial. All right. So each reader will bring different perspectives to the texts, right? So, for example, the Bart Ehrmans of the world are going to bring a certain type of understanding when they read this text, and the middle school romantic is going to also bring a certain interpretation of this text, right? Is also going to be bringing a certain element to the text. However, no matter what our bias is, we still need to read the text for what the text is if we want to get the most out of that text. That's it. That's pretty neat. Let's move those off to the side. Blah. Yeah, clearly this was the third build of the three, because this did not use much pieces. But check that out. That is a pretty cool frog. Yeah, I kind of like it. Let's compare. Then we'll get back into Ruth. Compare our two frogs. Clearly, this is a looks like a tropical tree frog, maybe, or water frog. But it is pretty neat. This is more like cartoony. Yeah, that's cool. I like that. All right. Going to take a quick break here. Be back in a couple of minutes. All right. All right, we are back. So, a little quick break there. So, that is a pretty neat little build with the frog. Definitely not keeping it, though. We're going to make the fish. All right, we're going to build the fish to round out the trilogy here. Because the fish looks like a much better build. But the frog is pretty cool. Like, if I had three versions of this set, I would probably have all three of them, because it is kind of neat. So let's get taken apart and get going on the fish. All right, so back to Ruth. All right. Now, in academic and scholarly circles, however, such basic inquiries seem to often be assumed rather than carefully articulated prior to investigation. by that I mean simply we all bring our own preconceived notions and biases to any given text, and that is definitely no different when it comes to the Protestant Bible. All right, so I'm not gonna try to convince you, the viewer, that the ancient Near East historical narratives are historically factual. All right, the paper for the term paper was not exhaustive in that regard, and this live stream's not going to be either. Okay. What I am going to do, however, is focus on the Book of Ruth and show how it is firmly grounded in ancient Near East historical narrative structure. The other part of this is I am not in the camp that views the Protestant Bible as one writing or one source text. I view it as 66 source texts, 66 separate writings and books and writings. All right. And as such, they should be treated independently in regards to being source texts. They should not be viewed as one writing, but in fact, individual writings. We don't view the complete works of William Shakespeare as one writing. We view it as one corpus, one collection, one anthology, but we view Macbeth as being a separate composition than, say, Hamlet or the over 100 individual sonnets, right, in that corpus. And we should view the Protestant Bible in the same way, with academic and scholarly integrity. Okay. It is a grave disservice to any serious reader. Well, I shouldn't even say any serious reader. I should say any reader, casual reader, serious scholar alike, to reference this magnitude of writings from the ancient Near East and classical Near East as one writing. I understand they're interconnected. I understand they're often printed together, but that doesn't make them one thing, right? They're still individual texts. So there is a prevailing narrative among scholars, like Bart Ehrman, for example, but among scholars in general, that these ancient historical narratives in the Old Testament, especially, are not historical. Okay, they're not historical. Instead, they're either legend or fantasy or works of fiction. In short, works of fiction, not fact. And I find that extremely hard to, buy into. I understand the arguments. I just think they're pretty lackluster with just a cursory reading of the text. All right. So we're going to focus on Ruth 1 through 22. That is the entire first chapter of the Book of Ruth. Where did that piece just fly to? There it is. All right. And just show how historically grounded this text is. All right. And how weak sauce I find the argument that this is fiction, not fact. All right. And I think this model of reading would be beneficial to any reader of these texts, whether it's the scholar, the theologian, the pastor, the Bible student, the seminary student, or just, maybe you're not even a Christian and maybe you're just interested in these texts for curiosity's sake and you just want to read some cool stuff, right? Just casual reading, right? I think this model of exegesis, if you will, of reading the text for what it is beneficial. All right. So I am aware that the entire corpus known as the Protestant Bible are interconnected, but that doesn't make First Samuel the same as Isaiah. So let's get right into it. Let's look at the Book of Ruth. Is this folklore, folktale? Is it legend? Is it ancient Near East historical narrative? Spoiler alert, that's the one I'm going with. Or is it something else? Yeah, I'm going to argue that it's ancient Near East historical narrative. The leading quote, as the book starts out, is grounded in real people, places, and events during the period of the Judges, which is the late Bronze Age, between the 14th and 11th century BC. All right. Edward Andrews discusses the dating of Ruth and concludes the text is most likely, quote, written during or just prior to his reign, referencing King David of Judah and Israel. A time frame that places the writing around the 11th century BCE, end quote. Now, one of the criteria for dating a text or judging its historicity is authorship. It's not the only one, by the way, but it is one of them. So we should probably discuss authorship of these texts, right? Of this text. Who wrote Ruth? Well, if we look internally to the text, we don't know. Okay? We don't know. If we look externally, on the other hand, we have a really good candidate in Samuel. Yeah, that Samuel, right? And the reason I say we have a very good candidate of Samuel writing this text shortly before his death is one, he dies just before King David becomes king. All right, David becomes king. He dies just before that. And he is credited with writing most of First Samuel, which bears his name, as well as the book of Judges. And Ruth has a similar construction to Judges, this episodic type format, right? Unlike the book of Judges, though, Ruth is pretty upbeat, and the book of Judges is, well, not upbeat at all, right? But the Jewish Talmud almost universally considers Samuel as the author of Ruth, as well as most Christian groups. But many modern scholars view it as completely anonymous because they reject that historical basis of the Jewish Talmud, Christian, and Christian groups throughout the last 2,000 years. They just pretty much wholesale reject that as historically relevant. Again, I find that to be pretty weak sauce to go, yeah, they didn't know what they were talking about, so we're going to ignore them. That's kind of a dumb approach, in my opinion. But hey, modern scholars be modern scholars, right? Authorship, though, is just one criteria. It's not the only one. And I will concede that we cannot definitively identify who wrote this book. We do know it was originally written around the 9th century or the 11th century BC. But who wrote it? That is debatable. But I'm going to fall in the camp that the highest candidate, the most likely, is Samuel. Okay. Now, like I said, definitively arguing who wrote the book is only one element. It's not the only one. And some would argue it's not even the main one. Internal composition and external attestation have a lot to do with it. So Ruth has been treated as a historical narrative for overwhelming majority of its existence. All right. Yeah. So back to the Jewish Talmud, they treat it as a historical narrative. Christians across the board generally treat it as a historical narrative. Non-Christians as well. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say, yeah, that's pretty strong indicator that it's, well, a historical narrative. Claims to be a historical narrative, and other people claim it to be a historical narrative, right? Looking for peace here. There it is. All right. Now, let's look internal composition, because I think internal composition has a stronger case to be made for this not being folklore, this not being legend or mythology. So, generally speaking, in legend and mythology, you're going to find extraordinary feats, all right? Things that are not just unlikely to occur, but border on the impossible to occur, right? So an example of this is there's a mythology concerning Zeus and the Titans, these massive giant beasts with a single eye, and you know, Kronos, and right, they're just larger than life, right? A modern example of these would be like DC Comics with Superman and Batman and Wonder Woman and the Flash, right? They're larger, you know, everything's exaggerated, right? Now, do we see that in Ruth? No. No, we don't. All right, spoiler alert. No, we don't. We don't see any of that exaggerated type of claims. Okay. So, right from the get-go, during the period of the Judges, refers to events chronicled in the Book of Judges. The judges ruled over the tribes of Israel from the 15th to the 11th century BC. Sometimes they ruled over one or more of the tribes. None of them ruled over all of them, all of the tribes. It was definitely very tribal culture, and that's historically based, right? Now, likewise, we have Bethlehem, Judea. You can go to Bethlehem today. You can see archaeological dig sites in that city. It's just south of Jerusalem in modern day Israel. But at this time, it was known as Bethlehem, Judea, uh, or Judah. And Bethlehem literally means house of bread. Okay. Its unique geography and climate made it suitable, still today is suitable, for having multiple crops, specifically wheat and barley. They would have a wheat harvest and a barley harvest. Okay. That doesn't sound extravagant or legendary or mythological in any way, does it? Sounds definitely rooted and grounded in real history, right? We don't see that legendary type element. Now, that's why it literally gets the name Bethlehem, house of bread, is because, um, well, they were able to make bread out of wheat and bread out of barley twice a year instead of just once a year. Yeah. Now, granted, as a reader, you should find this pretty ironic, however, that the house of bread is without bread, because Ruth starts with a famine in Bethlehem. There's a famine. They don't have bread. And that's pretty ironic, right? Now, is it unreasonable? No. Famines were extremely common in the ancient Near East. Um, oh, okay. There we go. That makes sense. Were extremely common in the ancient Near East in the late Iron Age and late Bronze Age and early Iron Age. Um, so the fact that there's a famine shouldn't be unusual. It's just kind of ironic that it's in the house of bread. The house of bread doesn't have any bread. And that should be considered pretty comical, right? Or at least ironic. Or at the very least, ironic, right? Now, notice without introducing any characters. So, generally speaking, when we see legend or mythology, we get character introduction pretty early. All right. Because they're the ones that drive the narrative. But here we don't have that yet, right? We don't have any characters introduced, and yet we are firmly grounded in the time period in which it claims to be written, right? Um, with these events taking place during the Judges, um, all yeah, it's pretty problematic. All right. Uh, oh yeah. All right. So, um, sorry, lost my place there. There we go. All right. Now, also, since this takes place in the period of the Judges, as readers, should find it kind of problematic. All right. And the reason being is quite simple. Moab. Moab, the Moabites are the result of an incestuous relationship between Lot and his eldest daughter. You can read about that in Genesis 19. All right. Just to recap what happens in Genesis 19, keep in mind different text, different authors, historical events, right? The Moabites, um, okay, that goes there. Oh, the Moabites are the result of this incestuous relationship between uh, Lot, Abraham's nephew, and his eldest daughter after they take refuge in a cave and watch the cities of the plains get destroyed. So that's Sodom and Gomorrah. All right. So Sodom and Gomorrah, they are destroyed from fire from heaven, which is generally understood to mean meteorite. A meteor shower falls on this valley and destroys the inhabitants. All right. I'm not going to go into a lot of historicity of that account. Just be mindful that's what it's referencing, okay? The people group that come out of that are called the Moabites, because Moab is the son of this incestuous relationship, all right? The daughter thinks that the two daughters, believing they're the only ones left, end up getting their dad drunk, and they become pregnant. They both become pregnant, and the oldest daughter gives birth to a son named Moab. And the descendants of that are known as the Moabites. All right. The Moab borders Judah at this time. Okay. So Judah is centered around Bethlehem, Jerusalem, that area. And Moab is just on the other side of the Jordan and the valley, and it's Moab. All right. But they are a constant thorn in the Israelites, the tribes of Judah, the tribes of Israel, their side. All right, they attack them throughout Exodus. They attack them throughout the period of Joshua and Judges. They are on and off again enemies of the tribe of Judah, like straight up enemies. Okay. There are prohibitions against Moabites and tabernacle worship. And the Mosaic Law. This should be problematic. Why are these Ephraimites from Bethlehem going to Moab, the enemy, right? Well, it's very simple. There's no bread in the house of bread, and there's food in Moab, so that's why they're going. The other thing is, Judges ends on this statement that is pretty profound. It's Judges 21:25. In those days, there was no king in Israel. Everyone did what was right in his own eyes. And we definitely see that with um, Ruth, the story of Ruth, right? Elimelech is doing whatever he wants. He's not taking into consideration that Moab is enemy territory. He's going anyway, right? But God, in His divine providence, we're going to see, uses these acts to further His will. All right. Now, this foundation and framework is fundamental to understanding the historical nature of Ruth as it plays out. Aside from authorship, external composition, this shows validity through historical claims, one of a four-prong internal approach. All right, so whenever we're reading a historical text, we want to see these four things: internal structure, narrative coherence, linguistic features, and historical claims. We have historical claims, like handedly, the historical claims are right there. All right. So let's look at the other three items. Um, Legs of this stool we call historical narrative, right? We have narrative coherence, linguistic features, and internal construction. After establishing the setting, the author introduces the individuals and their clans, okay, and their clan, continuing to firmly place this narrative in human experience and history. That's narrative coherence, not fantasy or folklore. Elimelech and his wife Naomi take their two sons to Moab in search of bread. I do find that ironic, but I also find their sons' names ironic as well. Their sons' names are Malon and Chilion, which in ancient Hebrew mean sick and ailing. Okay, which kind of sums up why they're going to Moab, right? Because they're sick and ailing. They're starving, so they're going in search of bread. Looks like I am short two pieces here. That go right there. All right. If they turn up, it's an external section, so I can deal with that later. That's fine. Let's keep going. All right. Their names give stark contrast to the promises we see in the other ancient Near East texts contained in the Old Testament of God's providence, God's provisions, the bread of life, right? We see this in Joshua, we see this in Leviticus and Numbers, Deuteronomy, Exodus, right? This idea that God provides everything. And here we have them going into enemy pagan territory, Moab, in search of bread because the house of bread has no bread. And they are sick and ailing, right? Now, notice there's no extravagance here. There's no massive buildup, right? With these texts, there's just this natural coherence, right? This natural flow, human experience. Nothing's exaggerated. It's just matter of factly stated. All right. By the way, there is not a better life in Moab, even though that's why they're going to Moab. They find that they don't get this better life. Instead, what do they get? Death. Spoiler alert, it's death. Elimelech dies. We get this 10-year time jump. All right. Elimelech dies. Ailing, sick and ailing, end up getting married, and then they promptly die, leaving 3 widows behind. We have Naomi, Ruth, and Orpah. Yeah. Now, Naomi's name means pleasant, and by the way, spoiler alert, she's not very pleasant. She's actually quite bitter, which is understandable and somewhat expected given what the author does here, right? The author is jumping in time. He's condensing 10 years of history into a pretty short narrative. And we see that in historical writings all the time, right? This like jump. Condensing his time, right? So, if the Book of Ruth was pure, I'm going to read this because I like how I wrote it. If the Book of Ruth was pure fantasy, folklore, or legend, why would it have such detailed descriptions of the time, location, and people involved in such a concise fashion contained in only 5 verses? Ruth has narrative coherence. Diane Holt summarizes the Book of Ruth with the following poem in Timeless Treasures Bible Outline. By the way, link in the description. In Ruth, the kinsman acts in grace to give his Gentile bride a place. The authors of Thomas Nelson's publishing summarize the Book of Ruth as, quote, a cameo story of love, devotion, and redemption set in the black context of the days of the judges, end quote. You can find that in, well, now it's out of print, but it's in this book right here, the Children's Ministry Resource Edition, New King James Version Bible by Thomas Nelson. All right. If you can get your hands on a copy of it, it's out of print, but it is well worth getting, in my opinion. I really enjoy it using that Bible. And then Moore and Peterson state in the opening of Ruth, quote, would have been seen in that ancient context as a curse, end quote. Out of these bleak circumstances, how could someone find hope and joy? Remember, Naomi's name means pleasant. Often the Book of Ruth is framed as a beautiful romance. But as Holt, Thomas Nelson, and Moore indicate, it starts out with little fanfare and fluff. Also, a lot of depression. Naomi was at her end. She understood that 3 widows in this context were going to have a very difficult time, even eating, let alone anything else. There was no hope, right? So what does she do? She bails. She looks at her daughter-in-laws and tells them, "Go home to your father's houses. Go home, uh, and leave me be. I'm going back to Bethlehem, where I expect to die." Yeah. Oh, okay. All right. Where I expect to die, essentially. And she even tells them when they resist her, she straight up tells them, "Are there any sons left in me? Like, if I got married today and got pregnant and gave birth to a son, would you wait around 15, 20 years in order to make babies with him? Like, what is wrong with you?" Right? This should be pretty comical, not just in the ancient context in which it's written, but also in our modern understanding of sexuality, right? Like, that is hilarious. Just the matter of fact way Naomi is recorded addressing her daughter in laws. Her daughter in laws are young, beautiful Moabite women, and they're like, "We don't want to leave you. How could we leave you? No." And she's like, "What are you talking about? Go back to your father's houses. Go back to your gods. Go back to your people. Get married. Make babies. Leave this old woman alone." Right? Why? Because she's being pragmatic, practical, like real human experience here, right? In the late Bronze Age, for there to be a widow, she was guaranteed to be poor. She was probably gonna starve to death. Yeah, not real uplifting hope, right? Not very hopeful, right? And now she's got 2 widows as well who are young and beautiful and in the prime of their lives, their prime childbearing age. And they're like, "No, we want to stay with you." And she's like, "That's a terrible idea. You need to go back to your father's house, who can provide for you because I can't. And you need to get married so you can have a husband who can provide for you and take care of you because, again, I can't. And if you're thinking it's a good idea to wait around for me to go get married and have another baby, and that's just dumb, right?" Ultimately, Orpah, she listens to her mother-in-law's advice, right? And she's like, "Okay, yeah, I'm going back home." And she cries and she leaves. By the way, little is known about Orpah outside of this cameo appearance in the Book of Ruth. If you look at other ancient texts, she's not mentioned. She disappears into obscurity. Ruth, on the other hand, who this book is written, the title of this book, she clings to Naomi, and she makes this beautiful declaration. And very stark contrast. Ruth is in the king lineage of David, in the lineage of Jesus of Nazareth. We're still talking about her today. Like, holy cow, right? Check to see here. All right, no comments yet. All right. If you have any comments, questions, snide remarks, go ahead. Hit me up in the chat. Let's blow that up and get going on that. But Ruth is just grounded in history here, right? Like, no doubt Naomi explained, "Hey, there are prohibitions where I'm going. There are laws that aren't real good for you, right? They're not going to go well for you. You're not going to be able to worship in the tabernacle. You're not going to be able to engage in civil society well because of your history as a Moabitist, things outside your control. But yeah, not real great, right? There we go. Perfect. That looks good. All right, let's get the back end of this fish going on here. I mean, no doubt Naomi explained this, right? And Ruth makes this beautiful declaration. Entreat me not to leave you. Again, this is from the New King James Version. Or entreat me not to leave you, or to turn back from following after you. For wherever you go, I will go, and wherever you lodge, I will lodge. Your people will be my people. Your God will be my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. The Lord do to me and more also, if anything but death separates you from me. Like, wow. Like, if that doesn't just like gut punch hit you, I don't know what's going to. Okay. The impact of this statement, of this declaration, cannot be overstated in light of its historical context. It can't be. Um, think about it. Ruth is giving up everything. Everything. Her culture, her status, her livelihood, um, all of it gone. To Because she has seen something in this woman and in her family that she wants to hang on to, that she doesn't have back home, and she's not going to let go. She's not. By the way, I find it rather comical and very understandable that Naomi stops talking to Ruth. Like, the indication here is they're going to travel in silence, right? The other thing is you have Naomi changing her name to Mara, which means bitterness. All right. So you have this youthful exuberance in Ruth and this beautiful declaration, right? Traveling with a very bitter woman. That juxtaposition is rooted and grounded in real human experience. All right. Um, but let me know what you guys think. I want to hear from you. I really do. All right. What what do you think about this text? Does it have this air of authenticity, or do you just view it as some ancient folktale? Because I definitely don't read ancient folktale when I read it. I read ancient Near East historical narrative. All right. But I would really love to hear from you. I concluded the paper like this. In conclusion, the cumulative external evidence and internal composition presented throughout this paper supports understanding the Book of Ruth as ancient Near East historical narrative rather than fiction or legend. From its precise in the days of the in the days when the judges ruled to its detailed naming of real people, identifiable places, historically grounded narrative. Ruth consistently presents itself as rooted in lived human experience within the Levant during the Late Bronze Age. Its narrative coherence, covenantal framework, and geographic specificity and integration into the lineage of King David and ultimately Jesus of Nazareth reinforces its claims as historical reality. Naomi's bitterness, very relatable. Ruth's bold covenantal confession. Like, have you hung out with young people and how they sometimes make just bold proclamations? Yeah. Geographic specificity, right? And the return to Bethlehem at the barley harvest all unfold within ordinary rhythms of history, like general rhythm of life. It's not mystical, it's not legendary, it's not folk tale-ish, right? The text does not conceal human failure, grief, nor poor decision making. Rather, it reveals divine sovereignty working through them. So the question is: the Book of Ruth folktale, legend, ancient Near East historical narrative, or something else, must therefore be answered. Accordingly, readers today, like those in antiquity, are invited to return to the house of bread at the barley harvest, acknowledging nothing but the faithful providence of Yahweh at work in real history. And I'd like you to do that today. I'd like you to do that today. Read the text for yourself. Don't take my word for it. Don't take some guy on the internet's word for it. Read it for yourself. Pick it up, read it. It is a beautiful story, and one I think is well worth reading and sharing. There it goes. I think we have the fish done, by the way. We're going to be building the platform. So check that fish out. That's pretty cool. I like it. We got the fins that articulate. That's neat. All right, let's go ahead and switch screens here. Let's drop that down. There we go. So hopefully on your screen you can see Bricklink, Rebrickable. So Rebrickable has approved listing the ancient Hebrew tabernacle build that I designed. And and you can see that on your screen there. If you go to rebrickable.com, you can search for TL Holt. That's me. And for MOX, MOC, right there. It's 2,230 pieces. You can scroll through the pictures there. You can download it. It is priced at $4.99. Any downloads do help this channel. And go to support 90 and out. This recreation of the ancient Hebrew tabernacle circa 1450 BC was designed using ancient records found in the Christian Jewish records. You can see that there. It was in use until almost continuous use by the ancient Hebrews until 957 BC, when it was replaced by the temple built by Solomon, Solomon's temple in Jerusalem. So it is playable. It does have play features there, and you can go ahead and look at the entire listing if you want. I would greatly appreciate it. Let me know your comments, questions, concerns. We do have the Ark of the Covenant right there. With Aaron's budded staff, there's a loaf of bread to show manna, as well as a book of the law. If we go here, you can see the inside of the holy place. Yeah, there are some other mocks you can look at. This is my account, so I'm just going to quickly go to them. But you would have to search for them. We've got tree, outdoor cauldron, cart, that kind of thing. All right. So go ahead, check them out. I also have a tab here called Bricklink Designer Program Series 10. Crowd support voting has closed. They will be announcing the winners here today during this live stream. As this live stream ends, they're going to be announcing the winners. But we have 2 submissions right there. Bricklink Designer Program. All right. So let's get back to full screen here. So if you would head over to those, that would help us out a lot here at the channel, if that's something you're interested in as well. Greatly appreciate any and all support. Check that out. Currently working on a design for Solomon's Temple, which obviously replaces the tabernacle in the Iron Age, the Middle Iron Age. So check that out. We'd love to get that going. All right. If you have any questions or comments concerning Rebrickable and mocks, Lego builds, that kind of thing, let us know. I'd love to answer those questions for you. Oops, that doesn't go there, it goes there. That goes there. Let's see, we've got a few more minutes here before we're going to conclude this live stream. So let's talk about biblical literacy. As you may know, here at 90 and Out, we have partnered with 6 Points Church, and Holt helps readers to develop a biblical literacy plan, course work. We're currently in phase 1. We've got some principal photography done for it. Biblical literacy is the ability to pick up these ancient texts we call the Bible and read them for what they are, okay? And simply read them for what they are and understand what you're reading, all right? Phase 1 is going to consist of Ruth, which we just went over, Jonah, Mark's Gospel, or the Greco-Roman biography by Mark of Jesus of Nazareth. It will also have Paul's letter to Titus and Philemon, as well as John's open letters. There's 3 of them, and Jude, which is also an open letter. There we go. And Jude, which is also an open letter. We're going to be reading through those as ancient literacy. Should be a lot of fun. You want to help support that, let us know you're interested in that. We are in the photography stage where we're recording footage and recording for those lessons. So there will be 6 lessons in phase 1. There's a total of 16 phases covering every book in the Protestant Bible. So just be mindful of that. It's quite a bit of a large corpus of writing. So that's what we're looking at. That's cool. What else about that? Definitely looking forward to it with biblical literacy. And forgetting what else I was going to say about that. That's all right. Oh, okay. Oh, that's cool. So that's how that sits on there. That's neat. Not done yet, though. I thought that was the end, but we're not. So let's keep going. We are going to finish this build during this segment, so just be mindful of that. There we go. I think we're almost done. Yeah, we are. We're almost done here. There we go. Put that in. So if you have any comments, questions, concerns, let me know. We're getting close to the end of the stream here, so I'd love to hear from you. Uh, just finishing up this build. If you want to support the channel, likes, comments, shares, all the good social media stuff work. If there is a subject you would like me to cover in a future live stream or possibly a build, let me know. We're currently working on some of the mocks, my own creation, MOC, that I've designed that we're going to be building in real life in the future episodes. So we're almost done with this stream currently. All right. So Spirit and Life Seminary, give them your attention if that's something you're interested in and you want to study biblical texts or theology or any of that nature. Let them check them out. All their classes are online, so they are 100% online. Pretty cool. So these are some extra pieces. This looks like it is the build. Yeah, this is the build right here. So let's talk about it. We did the frog. The frog was really cool. It was kind of lackluster though. Tons of extra pieces. This is the fish, the bird, the exotic bird that we started with. Definitely the main build of this set. Exotic creatures. But I like the fish. The fish is kind of neat. It does rotate here. It will rotate. See? So that's kind of neat. We can move that too. Let's see if we can't make it a little bit stronger of a build, though. Just using some pieces. We've got a few more minutes here until it's time to call her quits. So let's see what the other pieces we've got. And see if we can't make this just a slightly stronger build here. Yeah, we can do that. Just use some of these other pieces here. That works. I think that's pretty good right there. That's kind of neat. Let's add that over here. That works. Add a little bit there, right? Oh yeah, we can do that. That looks good. Add a little bit extra there. Maybe add a little blue in here. go. Let's put this back. Oh, I see. We can't do that. Okay. Yeah, I want to keep that there. All right. What we can do, however, is we can slide it under like so. And then we can take that one and put it there. That works. All right, that works. I like that. And then let's see. We've got a couple of these, so we can add them in here just to give it a little pop of color. And I think that's good. We're going to call that good right there. All right. What do you think? You like it? I like it. Yeah, I think that's cool. Let's add a couple more spots here. Why not? There we go. Let's add that. Let's put that one there. Go right there. And I think that's going to do it. I don't know why that's popping up like that. It's weird. All right. I like that. That's cool. These are extra. What do you think? Let me know. We're going to go ahead and call her quits here at 90 and Out, building for the kingdom one brick at a time. If you want to help support this channel, you can. Big shout out to our current supporters, my lovely wife, Dorothy, everyone at 6 Points Church for partnering with us, as well as Holt Helps Readers with Diane Holt. If you would like to pick up a copy of Timeless Treasures Bible Outline, you may use the link in the description. It's a great short outline full of acrostics. Definitely will help give an overview of the Protestant Bible. If you are wanting a download copy of the instructions for the ancient Hebrew tabernacle, head over to Rebrickable, do a search for ancient Hebrew tabernacle, or TL Holt, that's me, and you can find it there. So thank you. I'm Timothy Holt with 90 and Out. Don't take my word for anything Scripture has to say. Pick it up, read it for yourself, and I hope you fall in love with these ancient texts like I have. Until next time, we'll see you later.